Hello and welcome to Astro Mingle, the spiritual podcast that mingles with the talented lightworkers and the innovative influencers of our time. Let me ask you something. Are you curious about what the numbers and the stars might reveal about what's happening in our world right now? Today we're tuning in to one of the country's top numerologists for answers and insights. We'll also be digging into why numerology and astrology are trending so big that some people are actually misusing them and how you can spot what's real from what's not. But first, let's take a quick look at our commercial sponsors. From the creators of 40 Days of Past Lives and Karma and 40 Days of Self-Love comes the class you've been waiting for, an introduction to Step Astrology. That's right, I'm sharing some of my inside secrets on how to read a chart according to Step Astrology and help you interpret the stars, whether it's for yourself or for clients. Keep a lookout for us coming soon.
Are you a practitioner looking to move your life's work into the spotlight? Do you have that special magic that makes you stand out? Serious Joy is now auditioning for its new Practitioner of the Week segment on Namaste Today. Sensei Christopher is looking to highlight qualified lightworkers with a promo short dedicated to raising awareness about your gifts. Interested? Contact Jenny at intuitive.com to apply for an audition and get ready to shake what your spirit gave you.
Well, I got to tell you, that's a really exciting moment. We have a couple things coming to Serious Joy over the weekend and also our flagship school, which is Serious Joy Academy. Two big items. One, it's going to be the Love Fest of the year. This is when the sun goes into Leo. I don't know if you know this, but a long time ago in my career, I discovered that if you plant a seed at the beginning of Leo and you love that seed for the entire Leo season into Virgo, it will bloom. It'll actually bloom if your heart goes into it every day. And that's what the 40 Days of Self-Love is. It's a free program. If you're a Serious Joy subscriber, you can come to seriousjoy.com, subscribe now for $3.99, give it a try, and you can go through the whole program actually just as a subscriber. But some people don't want to subscribe, get hitched up, so they go buy it outright, and they can do that now at seriousjoy.academy. Plus, this is also exciting. We have two new courses coming. One, mine intro to astrology, to Step Astrology, where I'm actually giving the first tenets of how Step Astrology works, where it came from, and how to use it either in your personal life or your professional life. This will be the only time I'm live on camera in the class, too, because the hope here is to actually shoot the class for good. But it's going to be an amazing moment because I've waited a long time to share those things. And then also, we have another show coming as well, which can help you to build your own tarot deck, and that's with Gwen English, who's just joined our forces. All right, that said, let's talk about what we have to talk about this week. I'm thrilled to welcome back my good friend and a master numerologist, Josh Siegel. He's one of the top numerologists in the country with a real gift for making this ancient practice both fun and easy to understand. Of course, being a Libra, I think, really helps. And with so much going on in the world right now, we thought it's a perfect time to have Josh come have his take on what the numbers are saying and the cycles we're in. So we'll dive into another hot topic, the rising popularity of numerology, in particular on the web, incredibly, and astrology, and how it's leading some folks to being misused, and how you can spot that person from the beginning and avoid the fakes. But let's jump in. First, let's welcome tonight to talk about all the numbers and all the other things we come up with, my good friend, Josh Siegel, Step 19 Libra. Yay. Good to see you, brother. Can we hear him? Oh, okay. I guess we don't have sound. Are you there, Jish?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I said good to have you, brother. I don't know if that came across.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been some trying times, I'd say, since, well, we've been doing a lot of focus, you and I, on camera anyways. Every month we've been working with relationships and getting the core relationships, which is very much your talent, by the way. But at the same time, the world's been going to hell, so to speak, or at least, but I predicted this. I mean, I don't know if you did too. I mean, we talked about a 9-year, at some point, I remember, and things are really hectic, but there's so many signs, so many, Pleiadians are saying it, many different disciplines who have their own little magic here, yours numbers, have seen for a while this coming. Have you seen it in the numbers?
Oh yeah, well, I mentioned, in a prior talk between you and me on camera, I mentioned that this would be a trying year and a lot of heavier stuff would be coming up, more challenging things, and that is very much associated with the 9 cycle that we're in, right? Now, a lot of people probably don't know how to look at a 4-digit number, like a calendar year number, 2025. But I was taught by this old woman back in the mid-90s and how to look at 4-digit numbers, very advanced numerology. And I'm going to kind of show a little bit right now. And that is, you're going to cut each double. You're going to cut the first 2 numbers and leave it here, and then leave the second 2 numbers here, right? So you're going to have 20 and 25, right? And those are two different energies in of itself. 20 and 25 are their own numbers. And then you're going to add them together, right? And you're going to get 45, right? 20 and 25 are going to get 45, which of course, adds down to a 9. And so it must be understood, what is a 45-9? And some of these other numbers associated when you look at this large 4-digit number. And so if anyone knows the tarot, 45 correlates to the 5 of cups. Okay. And that number does have a distinct feeling of challenge and loss. But if you understand tarot and the symbolism behind it, you'll know that although there are 3 spilt cups to the left of the card, there are 2 perfectly good standing cups to the right, which signify the future. So I'm not downplaying what we're going through right now, and I think it's quite serious, to be honest with you. But I do think that this is going to bring up a lot of deeper, darker things that society has to look at. The parts of ourselves that maybe are discriminatory or hateful or problematic. I think we're going to be looking at those things within ourselves, right? And now 9 in general rules the global factor. 9 rules the masses and the public, right? And 9 is not always a good number. What I mean by good, we associate sometimes 9 with most people that they are a compassionate, empathetic types. When people have 9s in their chart, teachers, humanitarians,
kind of a heroism, isn't there? Like a little
right.
bit of a dash of hero. Yeah.
And that's because, the idea is the 1, at the beginning of this single digit numbers signifies the individual. And so the 9 goes through all of these, experiences of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we hit 9, we realize that we're all in this boat together, and they think in universal terms. But what happens if that gets perverted?
Right. Totally.
And,
it's like in numbers itself in math, 9 always leads to a bigger number. So it's like 9 to 10, 10 to, to 100, to 1,000, to 100,000. It always has this 9 event prior to us getting bigger. And that's what step astrology shows too, that the 10 becomes the foundation of what you build in life. Everything below the 10 is your inner life. And so 9 always represents go kind of energy,
So yeah, in many ways, you're right that when you hit 9, it's prior to you starting a new 9-year cycle, right? Because everything works in 9-year cycles. Numerology is based on the Pythagorean 9-year cycle, and but in the 9, we have to confront, right? Sometimes things that need to be healed, that we need to release and transform in order for us to journey into the new cycle. Well, we're doing that in the collective right now, right? So, but yeah, there are actually, dictators or evil people who had 9s in their chart. Saddam Hussein was an 18-9, right?
You're not going to get there with a 7. Like if you want to, even if you're the most benign person in the world, you still are operating in 9 to perform like that. That is a performance. These are people who can perform.
Certainly. And matter of fact, a good many performers, actors and people that we know, and many of them I've done have 9 prominent in their charts, both singers and actors. But the idea is that things are happening on a larger global or universal level, affecting larger groups of people. But we start with the 20, which is sort of the number of awakenings out of duality and the back and forth. 2 really symbolizes the us versus them, the separateness, the illusion of separateness. Right. So when we talk about, you study higher spiritual teachings, you realize that we're all sort of part of one, the great divine one. But in 2, we start to see others separate from us. And so that creates tribalism. That creates, you're good and that's bad. Right. Then you have the 25, which is a 7. And the 25-7 is the search for the deeper meaning and truth in life, or the search for the Holy Grail. And that's why underneath all of these trying times, there are those, finding deeper truth within this. It's triggering people to change and evolve. And there's the 7 path underneath all that, right?
A recent spiritual shift, right? So 25, there's a spiritual shift. I mean, astrology backs it up 100% in the sense that we just wrapped up Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Saturn last time in about 29 and a half years. Neptune the last time for 120. If I'm mistaken, no, I don't remember the number at the. But it's like it's a long cycle. It's the American Civil War. For some reason, my mind will not take that number. So I want to talk about that later. Do you avoid numbers in your mind? I have certain numbers that have a kind of a game attached to it, but the two zeros separate. So are those first two numbers in a year therefore always telling us kind of where the global is? I mean, just as far as numerology is concerned, the first two of the four, is that a global position for the number?
Well, the first two numbers, if you look at 2000, which started this cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We went from 99 to 2000. We started the 20 cycle, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
and what happened? Do you remember what happened in that election? There
Remember,
was
Y2K was a big fear. We thought all of our
well
computers were going to shut down.
that's another thing.
Yep.
It there was a lot of fear that there was going to be everything was going to shut down. A lot of all these dark belief systems that somehow everything's going to collapse.
That's true.
Right.
We were like the country back then actually did believe something just might have, we might be cursed or a little bit more
Right.
magical and absurd than it is today. Today, they're actually more, they believe different things, but they're using different tools like astrology, numerology to believe them. Back then, it was just like, and that one in the other one was, of course, when we had the Mayan shift. We're in 2012. We're just gonna like the world's gonna end because there's no calendar for them after that.
Right.
That was another kind of absurd fear in the 20s.
But the election between
Gore and Bush. Yeah, Gore and
and
Bush.
how that the decision was made by the Supreme Court,
Yep.
right, to decide the election, and it was
Right.
very contentious, and that created this contentious energy of us versus them.
Totally.
Right?
And it was the first time where it looked like the conservative. I mean, that was the first time the conservative looked to the conservative, like kind of. Well, the fact that it happened in his brother's state, Florida, was just suspect. That's just sus. Like, okay,
Of course.
why can't it happen in any other states? Like it
Right.
happened. Geez, all right. Like that's where we're like, we got a Bush in Florida, we got a Bush in Texas, we got a Bush, and just like that moment for us, I think was also, okay. But even the
Well,
Clintons,
remember the hanging chads and what was
right? Yeah,
and
weird.
the state Supreme Court sided with Gore, and then and it was the United States
Oh,
Supreme
federal.
Court that overrode them.
Yeah. I was kind of young and really partying over the whole like it's 2000 thing. But I was watching it, at the time. I was younger. But I recall. Now, what were the numbers then between 99 and 2? Would that be 1999 would be a what number? So we went from what year to what year? Because I distinctly feel the difference. When I woke up in the 2000, I swear to God, I felt different.
Well,
It was like,
there was because
I mean, you energetically felt it. I mean, it was almost, you're like, really?
look, there are positive and negatives or challenges in every number. This is why we're going
Right,
to talk
right.
about this later. We're going to talk about this later when we talk about
We should
how
probably
to
move towards
detect
that.
well, if a reader knows their
Right.
stuff, and if they're coming from a right, a good heart and a good form of ethics, and
Right.
but this absolute, we're going to talk about the absolutism that I see on the internet today that bothers me and I think is problematic. But
Yes.
when we
Yeah.
look at when we look at the two energy, we look about that it is receptive, that we can have awakenings. There's a spirituality. People who have
Yep.
20s in the chart
Yep.
can have insights and revelations to life, but it also is an illusory number. The fact that there's us versus them, or black versus white, or separateness, and that creates what I think nowadays is we're really in it very badly. Tribalism, where
Yeah.
we can't. I've said this time and time again, is where you cannot get anyone on any side to see anything. And there's a lot of whatever I believe is what it is,
For how
right?
long though? That's the question. As I say, I think we have to go through these phases as humans. We have to go through the tribalism. I feel the reason why we're being probably pushed into our tribalism, I would just think about or theorize on is that we're about to go higher. And I find in my clients, like when you're about to go higher, you do one more visit to older. And you
That's
kind of
right.
like process like where you were, where you are, wherever. And there's this whole human thing of like, I don't know, should I? And I think that to go tribal is that way. So, but I'm counting on it ending. That's the thing. Like maybe
So
we say stuck at that stage. Yeah.
no, I tend to agree with you, and that's why I said, in the number 45, when it associates with the tarot, is the Five of Cups. There seems to be this conspicuous loss, difficulty, things, and it seems to kind of be going along with where we're going right now. There's a lot of fear, consternation, anger, and what's going on in the world with wars, but also in our own country. But the two perfectly good standing cups to the right. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's what you said. A nine is the initiation ritual. There used to be in the ancient days when you would join, or you were brought into, let's say, a secret society, or a mythic cult that would prepare you for initiation into awakening to a higher state of consciousness, there a lot of the time there would be 9 trials and tribulations you would go through.
Right.
There were
Yep.
9 steps, right?
Yep.
And that
9
was
steps.
part.
Thank you for saying that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, most
Yeah.
certainly, and we see this when we said whatever we have left over, because there was hidden knowledge back then. But whatever our scholars, historians, have the evidence of what took place in these sacred initiation rituals. A lot of it was 9 steps or 9 trials and tribulations before one was then reborn, right?
Yeah, I believe that that's another topic for another show, but I believe that those numbers and things are real, that they are to some degree access to the matrix or Mother Earth or this experience, like getting into the code of it and opening up and closing down things. In that sense, I used to be like, with ideas of witchery or magic or opening up a portal, I thought it was hokey. But now I'm looking at it, the entire system everywhere is using this power of number. They're all agreeing by
Yeah.
the number, really. Number to me is the code of the universe of spirit. Like it all comes down to a number. That's like the first note every modality hears or does or whatever. You tuning in there with the tarot card. So because everything's wired together like that, I have this feeling that when they say that in Egypt there are these beautiful goddesses who can sing, and when they sang and they pointed the rod there, like it lifted the rock. It's quite possible there's like this breaking into, and I think numerology, by the way, is you're breaking down the code.
I couldn't agree more, and I think there's evidence for what you're saying.
Cool.
We know that, for example, even not so long ago, but Carl Jung,
Oh yeah.
uh,
Mhm.
you know, early 20th, late 19th century, early 20th century, godfather of psychoanalysis, but also a mystic in his own right.
Thought to be
The,
an
the
astrologer.
who
Thought to
coined
be
the
an astrologer
phrase,
too.
or
Yeah.
someone said, I think it was on someone said before that he did not coin the phrase archetype. He actually did, but the
Oh, did
concept
he?
of the archetype, yeah, he did. Someone was wrong about that, but
Uh,
but but the concept of the archetype came from someone else that he studied. But nonetheless, but
huh. Interesting.
primordial image was the idea that he got from someone else, but the name archetype was coined by him. But nonetheless, what he
Good
saw
story.
was that numbers, that man didn't discover numbers. They already pre-existed.
I
Yeah.
agree. It's like hardwired into the organic structure. I think it's hardwired into bees. They have a count probably of everything. I think everything's counting all the time, and I
The
think just
entire
counting
universe.
1, 2, 3, 4, and then if you
Yeah.
think about like the word 1, 2, 3, really what magic comes down to is the pronunciation. I've been having fun on AI recently, asking like where my name comes from according to pronunciation. And when I see all the associations of the Witecki, Witty, they all fit together energetically for who I would describe myself as. I was like, holy shit! Like my last name is exactly how I describe myself. If you do the research of the sound, not the spelling, that's when people start to
Right.
disconnect that power right there. When you spell a word, it's like you're taking the one, you're deliberately using these other things that have precognition to them, put them together into one. Consciousness like puts it all together and gives it a number, a serial number. It's kind of how it
Yeah.
works. It's like
Wit, wit tacky. I mean, come on, let's face it. Wit and tackiness. That's you. Let's face it.
That's how we started our ancient days. But then we started to. No, I was kidding. No, we're still with tacky. Ask anyone I've dated. I am
Totally.
tacky. Yeah, totally. Well,
Um,
these are the
yeah.
secrets of the universe unfolding. I guess getting back to our original question and moving on with the
Right.
script, right? Like, hello. How do you, in this moment then, therefore, where we are at 9, is this usual? Business as usual? Should we, can we relax a little bit? I feel like that's part of where we have to grow first. You talk about the emotions and sensitivity. I think the biggest blame here is that people do not know how to emotionally cope. Period. It doesn't matter what we throw at them or what the new headline is now. When we start getting rattled, we don't have the tools to calm down, and we can't separate our feelings about this from our feelings about something else. To me, the 0 and the 20 is like, you got to separate this from this. This is your husband, this is your kid. But we allow all of our feelings to come together in this big tidal wave. And I think maybe we're starting to get more of an awareness of that level of us, how we are operating emotionally, usually underground. That's what I'm hoping for
Well,
this 19.
well, over a period of time, and I'm not going to say how long, because I'm not Nostradamus, but over a period of time, people will come to terms with the fact that what they were against in someone else, or what they thought was
Oh, yeah.
wrong, they'll
Yeah.
realize that this was a distortion to some degree, and that we're all very much similar in many ways, right?
Yes.
Now, there are people out there who spout horrible things and say horrible things that are very divisive.
Yeah.
And believe me, I'm well aware of them, and I don't like that at all, and vehemently against it. But there's the universe, the intelligence has a way of, there are times when, the underbelly, the dark parts of the self, the shadow self, on a collective level, we all have a shadow self, we all have the dark parts of our subconscious mind. We're
I
all,
can name them. Yeah, I can name them later.
yeah, and we are here to, learn and understand those parts of ourselves, but there is a collective shadow, right?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Right now, the
World War
collective
II and
shadow.
Hitler, things like that. Yeah.
Right. There are times in society and history you can go back. We're in the collective shadow right now.
Yes.
And but look, I hate to say this, but there may be some pain on the horizon for certain people, and from a certain groups of people, but also people who care about other people. And we're gonna have to see what the ramifications of that are, and where some things needed to happen and some things went too far. Okay.
All right.
And that's where we're going to have the balancing of the scales. Okay.
Yes, I see
And
that. Listen to this Libra. Listen to this Libra talk. You're being very diplomatic now, and I'm starting to see your guys' role now because Libras have been changing their role in the world,
yeah.
and they're actually supposed to go after what they love right now. And I was joking with them last week's horoscope, like, I've never seen you chase what you love. I've always seen you help people. You know what I mean? But this is it right here. It's time. We need the Librans to come up and talk about how to do it in fairness and balance. Because the truth is, I think we just can't get over our own hurt feelings to be able to like deal with another person's feelings.
I
You know,
think
at the
it's
end of
gonna.
the day,
I
yeah,
think this is gonna. Mother Nature has its own way of dealing with things,
I
right?
know.
After there's been a fire, and then it turns to ash, and then
True.
but over time, then we see new birth and growth of vegetation. This is the cycles of life, And when you're on the outside of the circle,
Hmm.
right, and you're
Hmm.
going around, this is elated because great stuff is happening, and then you're going down, and this is horrible. We're in this shithole, and then we're going up again. When you're in that outside of the circle, it's very hard not to be deeply affected by disturbing changes around you in your life and so on and so forth. However, if you stay in the center,
Hmm.
right, this doesn't mean that you're not active saying, want to, vote for something, or I want to support something I think needs to change, because that's going to be required for people if they want things to change. That's why but if
Right.
staying in the center, we realize that if you look back in society, there have been times when things, got off kilter, but they were brought back karmically,
Yes.
right? Always, always.
A faith in at
And
least statistics.
just
Have faith in
factually,
statistics. Yeah.
and that's the balancing of the scales of the two.
Yeah.
Sometimes one part takes control, and they lose sight of the balance. They speak about that in the Kabbalah when you start studying the Kabbalah. You
Yeah.
know, well, they talk about the Sifirot, which are the sort of the lights, this diagram of God's mind and how manifestation came in. I don't want to go too far and have everyone go,
No,
what
I
the hell is
love
this
it.
guy talking about? But
Yeah.
but there's also, there's a diagram in Kabbalah called the Tree of Life, or the Etz
Yeah.
Chaim, and there's
Yes.
10 circles and lines connected. And you look at it and you go, what the hell is this? And once you start studying, you realize these are sort of 10 steps of how manifestation came into being, sort of the concept of of God, and then what we have right now. We're in this world right now. And but there are also, on the other side of that, sort of the negative aspect of the Sephiroth, called the Klipot. And the
Hmm.
Klipot are sort of the negative, or shall I say, imbalanced usage of those powers, those different powers, you
Right.
know. And what happens is that in society, in world and politics, there's always this one side that goes too far with it,
Right.
right?
The side
God
that's
gets
disconnected from their heart, I'll just say. The
oh,
side that's
right.
not listening to their heart will, because they're looking for more thrill and they don't have joy in their life because they're not listening to their heart, they will go out and look for more joy in the world, throwing things off balance because they have a resource here and they go out here, basically. Just had to throw that in, I think. The issue is, and they go too far.
So
But you're right. We're in a duality, and duality means that the only way to experience who you are is to feel yourself on both extremes.
that's right.
That's how you map yourself out. Is like, well, I'm sure it
That's
sounds like,
it.
uh-huh. So that's just experience of being human. I feel like whether people know it or not, and culture ought to say, give us a little bit of a break for that too. Like we should be like, oh, okay, so everyone's gonna be dark and everyone's gonna be this. Okay, instead of kind of over ramping our feelings on it. This is how it is, and it has been.
So let's say there are things that haven't been taken care of or done, and then a force comes in and says, "Oh, we need to take care of that," but then they become too extreme in taking care of what needs to be done, and they lose, they become imbalanced. Well, then at some point there's going to be a backlash, and that's going to be checked.
Correct.
And
But
that's just the bigger picture.
yeah, I see
Right.
that totally. It's if you drop 2 drops of blue food coloring into water, it's going to turn the entire water blue, because there's a principle in this universe that everything will come to equality and at rest and at balance again. Everything will rebalance if you just that force
Right.
may take 10,000 years for that thing to come to back. For a rock structure, whatever, it all has a different timeline, but it will always be in balance. Period. It's like a commandment that's like living in everything. So I agree. And I agree. I think when you're about to turn a corner, yes, you do have this overreach by something or someone, either someone aggressively trying to take over, Europe, which is a huge overreach, but there's this overreach moment, and that overreach then has a correction, totally. And a lot of times I think there's some skilled leaders where they might jump on that overreach just to make the crowd stand up. When it comes to sophistication of who we are as a species, if you know that's true, you can make it work for you. I'm not saying that's happening now. I don't see any skill. There's no outcome I'm happy with. So far I'm seeing is the chaos. But I do think that there's that stirring up that has to happen. And the thing is, we become so comfortable in our modern lives. We were like, let's go to bed, order some food. You know?
Like no, no, I generally agree with you. There is certain things going on in our country that were not dealt with,
Yep.
right? But and then what happens is when you don't deal with them and you let a system just
Yep.
go on and on, then somebody comes in and goes, "Oh, well, I'm going to deal with this,"
Right.
right? And then we're like, "Oh, good, we need someone to deal with that," and they go, "Well, I'm going to do all these other things too," and we start losing balance, right?
Yep.
And this is how things work, right? But
Yep.
again, the universe has a way of checking checks and balances, and
Yes.
it's this
Surprising
system.
ways.
Yeah.
One example I'll give, and this is a fascinating conversation where it's gone. Very rare for us to be able to just open up like this and just be ourselves on camera. Because I feel like this is what I love about this guy is that I can go anywhere and he's got something to say and he's got information to bring to it. Do you feel that regardless, when people go through an age change, that there has to be a disruption, a revolution? It seems like now is that just built into humans because we come from a slave history, either slaves to aliens or slaves to each other, and so we
I
had
I I I
rise up
do.
kind of
I,
yeah,
I I do. I do. Well, I do only in the sense that's what's happened in the past. Historically, that's what's happened. But
yeah,
you have to understand there's the microcosm, which is you. So everyone watching this right now they're their own microcosm, right?
of
And
course,
sure, there are times in your life where you had a career break or something positive happened and you married your high school lover, and this joyous occasion you had a child, beautiful child. These are wonderful changes, and these are amazing things, and this is what makes life living for. But the truth is, and I'm not being negative at all, because there's lots of beautiful, wonderful things that can happen in this world. My mom said that to me on her deathbed, my birth mom. I said, "Mom,"
wow,
I said, "But how can you, if you leave, you know?" I said, how am I going to find you're my joy. You're always there for me." And she said, "There are other beautiful things in this world.
wow,
Don't
wow,
forget about the positive. There's negative, but don't forget about the positive." Something
yes,
to that effect. And she was positive even as she was leaving this world, because she
wow.
knew going on to the next phase,
That's who saved you.
with
Who saved
optimism.
you? Yeah, yeah,
You
that's
know?
wonderful. I mean, that's the way life is, right? I mean, from what I hear, all the prophets, everyone, that's the way life is. It's wonderful. And how do you
It
find
is.
that perspective? Like,
No,
you
but I
know,
want to say I should have said something. That is true. There are good things, but from my experience, right? Um, we are this is boot camp for souls, right?
Earth
And
or
Earth
moment?
is boot camp for souls, and this is
Yeah.
a place of trials and tribulations to learn and grow.
Yep.
And so no one gets out.
No.
Sometimes, we look on social media and goes, "Oh, this person is so beautiful and they're rich and they get up and they go around," and then you don't know what's going on in their private life and and what's really going on, and
Oh,
the
yeah.
illusion that's being put out there. We are all here to go through our ritual. And
Yep.
remember, I talked about the ancient times when you would go through initiation rituals, and there are all these things that they put you through in order to have these spiritual awakening experiences. Some of it rather, I mean, some of the early experiences life threatening. You have to go through these real trials that could threaten your life. I think they changed those a little bit later on, but the point I really want to make here is that if all of us will go through difficult periods in our life, right?
Right.
And
As rich.
that is our own ritual. That is our own initiation ritual. On a collective, we also will go through initiation rituals as a
Yeah.
collective. And
Yes.
we'll face the dark parts of ourselves and come out renewed and changed, right? Those
Yeah.
periods that we do that are very uncomfortable, and we're in one now, unfortunately.
We're in a global one now. I mean,
we're in a global one now.
we've been in
Yeah,
private ones for the last maybe 10, 11 years. It's been private, these little challenges. And I
yeah.
think we've been kind of like, is this me or is this is a habit? This is a pattern, like, and that this is a pattern is really finding your own karma where you have your own personal lessons. I believe in multiple lifetimes. I believe each lifetime you try to get better at something and you remember the past. And I
Me
believe
too.
right now, the strong man fear is we are waking up to our subconscious and we're remembering Mussolini being in Germany, being the victim of these horrible atrocities you see through history. We've
Yeah.
all been victimized by, and I don't feel unless you sat down and processed that in a good cry on one of the new moons, you haven't faced it. What's interesting is your soul holds on to these grudges, and so lifetime after lifetime, when a similar grudge comes up or looks like it's going to happen again, we get lit up like a cat ready to go in a battle because it's so deep. So I feel like we have to go through this at least fear that the boogeyman is here. We have to go through the fear. We have to face that fear somehow in a hopefully safe way that doesn't go too far. But we're collectively doing it right now all together. We're all basically, I think, getting rid of the heavy stuff so that we can go lighter. Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Okay, good. Well, that's a good pause. And one example, if we hang out together, we'll be right back. We have a sponsor message, and we'll get digging into this year and the numbers we see.
Audio Jungle.
Coming up next week on Serious Joy TV, join Sensei Christopher and co-host psychic medium Scott Cruz live on Wednesday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then tune in to Astro Mingle for a mega astro conversation with guest Natha Perkins of Electra Astrology. The best in enlightened entertainment only on Serious Joy TV.
Hey there, folks. I'm back here with my buddy Josh Siegel, one of the world's best numerologists, and he's going to go off touring soon. He just announced that we're at a bad number, and bad things going to happen.
I didn't say that.
I just
did not
say
that.
I'm deliberately tipping his scales here for comedy, but very fascinating. It's going to go on, is one of my favorite episodes between us because we just, in some ways, we represent, I think, where humanity is in the sense that we're coming to some conclusions about what we now believe and feel. And we're out looking around going, okay, that's not going to work. What we've been doing is not going to work. So collectively, there's this feeling of let's get over this, make this better. We don't want things to be this way in the future. Where in the past, it was like a fear. Will it always be this way? I now feel like society's like, this is going to change. Like people are getting upset, not upset actually in a very balanced way. A lot of reason, like, doesn't matter. This needs to happen, so we're waking up. And now we're waking up on that waking up, actually. It's pretty interesting that way. I've been playing with AI lately too, just talking to AI and stuff, and I'm amazed at just how quickly I can find patterns in astrology, find patterns in astrology. I'm like, holy crap, it came up with all the patterns that I would have spent 10 days looking up. But here's AI proving the astrology. I asked to look at Jupiter in Cancer and what happens every time Jupiter's in Cancer. Can you find a trend? And it's all about nurturing improves. Emotion becomes more important in life. It's like you basically just define Jupiter in Cancer. And that's what I'm getting to here to move on to the discussion is that, astrology, Jupiter's in Cancer. This is a once every 12-year time to grow up. When I mean grow up, I mean emotionally. It's our feelings. It doesn't want to do it. We don't feel like it. And we haven't learned how to just all right, I know it sucks, but we just got to get there, little buddy. We haven't learned those little traits. And I think this time we're going to. I also think it's weird that we have AI to talk to when we're sad and alone. I don't know if you tried that yet, but.
Oh, I've been, ChatGPT and I have a very deep relationship, probably deeper than it should be, but
I would ask ChatGPT about
sorry to
that.
say.
Yeah. Chat.
But yes, if you look at, there's a safetiness that Cancer brings, because it's the home, it's the nurturing, it's the mother, it's the fourth house, or it's all these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to be looking at, what makes us safe and what doesn't make us safe from this period.
Yeah.
Some people say that there are these elements in our country that have to go, and then, but are we doing it in a way that's making us unsafe and not feeling secure, and other things? Look, we're looking at all these things, and that's a part of this process. Look, Jupiter, for me, Jupiter is going into my 8th house very soon in
Mm-hmm.
Cancer, right? And
Yep.
that you've talked about this before, right?
Yep.
About what
Yep.
that means for me, and the deeper levels of intimacy that's going to bring up, and so on and so forth, and that's all on the table,
Yep.
but I think
Yeah.
I think ultimately, cycles like this are where we grow.
Yeah.
This is it. When I would say the good times are like recess, when you're in school, it's like recess. You're out on the playground, and you're, playing with your friends, you're playing basketball or whatever, or tetherball or whatever with, with the other kids. And then you're back in school again, and usually when you move from one grade to another, there's usually some heavy tests that you have to take. You have to pass the grade in order to move on to the next grade. Am I right? I mean, this is where we're going to. I talked about this months ago, and I said it's probably not going to, be that fantastic in some ways. But, if you look at every person's life right now, and you look at the times when they really had a massive shift in their life, more times than not, they face some parts of
Oh,
themselves,
yeah.
some challenge, the dark night of the soul, they call it, and that, but if without that, they never would have gotten to where they are now. And I've seen this time and time again with people. I know it to be true.
Agreed. Well, there's something in conscious, which is the circle. And the circle, I believe, is creation, leaving itself and coming back to itself. So it's like this boomerang. Like God went out and God came in. The Big Bang and the Big Crunch. Like this is the breathing of the universe, this circling. And so you will be on the circle, and there will be a part of the circle that's shadowy and dark, and a part of the circle that's sunny and bright. And if there's one commandment of the universe I see consistent, it's that it's a circle. You must do the full circle. Now, the full circle could be over lifetimes where you're the killer and you're the victim, or that circle can be in one lifetime where things are going great, your career was just jamming, and then this happened, that happened, and then suddenly you didn't know if it was going to make it, you thought it was all in despair, but then suddenly things started to perk up, and now you realize you're a better person. It's like we're on this merry-go-round, and it's not ever stopping. I think, and that's what astrology tells us. I mean, what I love about astrology goes, okay, there's basically 12 circles, 12 states of awareness. They're all moving at a different rate and in a different combination. And that's what pushes the story forward, which is clearly the case. So, the planets, maybe their gravity, there is something about them and them swinging around the earth that is actually affecting when things move up a step. And that's my obsession, is what step are we on within all of our steps? Like steps within steps is my craze. But the numbers always play out, even in math, like pi. There's magical math numbers in equations too, where mathematicians are like kind of, over the top with their faith in these things, right? There's something with the universe, the numbers will tell you if it can play out. But this overall, I think, is us waking up, period, right? Like, there's a lot of, like, for instance, does numerology for you play into events? Like, we haven't talked about this before, but does an event have a signature? Does it have like a number? Is there a deep number for that? Just not these few numbers. I feel like long numbers are probably like long spiritual equations of consciousness shifting like the weather. Can you numberize, is that a word, an event?
So, statistically speaking, when I say statistics, I don't mean that I actually work as a statistician, but for me, as far as my experience in doing it, well over 20,000 sessions now, in a span of, 28 years, I'm pushing 30 years now. So I'm no spring chicken anymore. But there's a lot of experience in seeing, what tends to happen under certain cycles. I'm not going to say anything absolutist, because I don't believe in that, and because there's
always changing.
and we're gonna bring that up a little bit later, because people need to really understand this, is that I think people should consult whoever they want to consult, and get different insights. That's great, but there's some things that we need to talk about today, as far as, because I'm seeing an epidemic of people who are not well versed in what they're doing, and either conning people or delusional. And I think it's a problematic situation, about that. But yes, going back to
let's just dive in. You brought it up. You said it out so well there, and simply and clean. The issue is that, well, I said to you backstage, first of all, there's a lot of people misleading is what you're getting to. Practitioners
Yeah.
say they have the gift or whatever, and they're misleading crowds and misleading, audiences and our customers. And I said that in a way that's kind of like exciting because we made it. Like we're finally something that wants to parasite off of us. We're not the poor ones anymore. So it's like a weird observation on both sides of that circle. For one, having enough money in what we do. When I set out, I didn't know if I could make a living doing this at all. And now we have parasites. But what does your heart want to say about that? In regard to that, first of all, it's upsetting to you, I think, because you're a scholar. And you take a lot of effort and pride in your work to study and do things properly and check. That's part of your Libra balance and your certification. So anyone that hasn't done that to begin with to you is suspect. And I agree that to me it's the karma of misleading or the possibility of misleading. But I also can say too on the channel end, what's opening up a lot of the channels, and I have to be honest, I channeled all my information. I did not do the due diligence of always looking. I looked later and be like, oh yeah, exactly. It got a little boring over time for me just looking to see if it was correct. At some point I had to surrender to it. And in that case too, do you see that too? The mislead and the ones who are just trying to find their way themselves.
Well, they're okay. So those are subtle points there. I mean, channeling is a different situation because if one is authentic, meaning that it's coming from a point of love, it's coming from a point of service. And by the way, those are the first two things are absolutely necessary for anyone in this work. Okay, and it's amazing to me that I feel like when did I become the moral majority? But I just think things have gotten so bad. I feel like I have to say something about this, but
maybe your calling. It's your calling in this lifetime. Maybe that's part of the role here. I think it's the birth of a new age of light workers, a huge birth. That's why we do Unite the Light. And so you are a forefather of numerology.
So, look, when social media started taking off and I started seeing people going online and doing these things, I got turned off by it. And that's why, I've done very little social media. And I was very late just having Instagram, and I told you, we were off earlier today when we spoke. I talked about that TikTok video I threw out there that went kind of viral or something, this old video I threw out there, and that what I gained from that whole experience, what I learned about TikTok. But a person needs to come from, I'm not the, they need humility, and they need a motive of love and service. And that means that I want to help you more. It's great to make money, and I'm a capitalist, and I'm all for it. But your prime consideration is helping a person and educating them and helping them to negotiate these crazy waters of life, right? You're a guide, and that is a responsibility. And people are throwing things out there that are so wildly out of control, and these absolutisms, there's this guy on TikTok that someone, sent me their profile, and I was astonished at the things he was telling people, that if you're born on a particular day, just that one day, you will have health problems, for the rest of your life. Or if you're dating someone that's born, was it May 20th or one of these dates, they are going to destroy you. They are a nightmare, and all these people who happen to be watching this person, who happen to be born on that day, or now think to themselves, wow, I must be a really terrible catch. It must be very horrible. And I saw some other videos that were shocking to me. Someone questioned this person, and they asked, how can you question me if you're not a millionaire? If you're, you have to be a millionaire to question me, which I don't even see the correlation between how much money a person has and how good they are at their craft. There's this lot of horrible stuff going on. Then the insidious stuff of people that come across like they, want the best for you, but they do it in a very manipulative way, right? And you'll notice with the people that are selling you, quickly on things, promise big stuff like this, Yeah, and they promise too much too soon, and there's no self-development. There's no self-development. You just, blah, blah, blah. Just do this, and then it all happens. And this takes away, we're here to learn and grow and evolve. Do I think that astrology and numerology can be used to help create greater success in one's career and actually invite greater prosperity? Absolutely, I do. I do, because I've seen it. But the way that works is that people learn about what they're here to work through, to take responsibility for their own actions, and to enact changes utilizing that information in order to create greater success. That's different than someone saying, buy this thing, this spell, or wait for this one day and do this, but you have to, buy this from me. I'm seeing way too much of this. And the
Hmm.
problem is that there's a lot of this became so pop culture about maybe 7 years ago, 5 to 7 years ago, it started becoming pop culture. And
Yeah.
I knew something was going on because I'm not seeking a lot of publicity, and I'm getting phone calls or emails from like, In Style magazine and Vogue and
Yeah.
Elle magazine. I was like, what do these people want with me? Because it became trendy, right?
Well,
And
don't you think it's the dawn of the age of Aquarius? I feel it's
yeah,
the dawn of the age of Aquarius. The kids are all believing this. They come out and grow up believing in it, even though their parents didn't. Because in my generation, it's like one out of so many would believe in this,
right,
Gen X, and so it was a crapshoot, really, if someone's going to believe
right,
it. This young generation, I can ask just about anyone. They know their sun, their rising, and their moon. They don't
100%.
have their step number memorized, but they will once they figure out what it does. You know what I mean? And that's they're coming in conscious, ready to play the game. They're ready to play. You know, I
100%.
I see what you see. And to me myself, it's like to me it has to do with a certain level of development. Like if you are gonna like be a carp and be a bottom feeder and you're gonna like go after naive, then you're at the same naive level in a certain way. And so those I know I've been suckered into hearing everything I want to hear and promise everything I want to promise enough times
Yeah,
being not true where I was like, fuck man. And I catch myself, I'm like, oh my ego just jumped for it. You didn't even ask my heart. You didn't even feel if it was right or wrong. I mean, I've had money stolen from me. When I went to Chicago, like I had money stolen from me a few times where I believed this guy was gonna go give me a stereo for a dirt cheap price or something, and I was so young and naive. So I feel like that's always gonna be a constant though to that level. The fact that it's becoming like a way everyone that just isn't that just making the bottom wake up in some ways? Like you can kind of
well,
see the useful
well,
thing.
social media so you got screwed over because found an ad on whatever, you found something. But with social media, and you have personalities, some of them are very attractive and very charismatic,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and they have millions of followers, right?
Yep.
And some of them, are not bad people. They're not preying on people. I would just say that they're not, you know overly well educated in what they're talking about,
No, not at all. I mean, I think they're running with it and they're totally hot dogging it. You know,
Yeah,
it's like in the West when you had a guy come in town, show up out of nowhere with a cure all for some cure all disease, like literally a
right.
cure all disease in this one bottle. I was like, people bought that shit, and they did. They obviously bought it because those people made money. So there's always that weird kind of hoaxer. And by the way, someone who's naive is not lower on the totem pole, but lack of experience, lack of trying and missing, trying and getting, all that builds wisdom. And some people have the wisdom, and some people don't. But I look in their charts, I can see why. When someone's really naive to like modern world, they've just spent like last four lives on ranches in weird environments, like doing farming and stuff. They're just now coming to the modern city, like they're literally Aborigines going, hey, this is kind of cool. This other choice, spirits are incarnating. So it's like a lot of them people are just naive. They have to learn. I was there, 10,000 years ago. I was there, whatever the case
No, but
may.
we all are. We all are naive coming into this world, and we
Totally.
learn. I
Yeah.
I just think that I'm a little concerned about how things are being presented in
Hmm.
such a way that I think is a kind of a bit of a misuse of these systems, and because they're more for self development, not for getting exactly what you want next Tuesday if you do this thing. So
Well, why
you
not?
know,
I mean, I feel like we have magic underneath our wings, man. Like we've just begun to use how we can dial in. I mean, I fully believe Yeshua made water into wine, and there's a trick to it. I feel like there's a trick to it. It's built in. If you read all the scriptures, everything, I can't believe the entire world through history was making up these ideas of levitating, all these things, making it up, all of them simultaneously in regions that they can't communicate with each other. We know we have more to under the hood, and I feel like we're about to come into that. Like there's more into this hood. All the films about Marvel films about heroes and all the people with magic, Harry Potter. Like we know we have a magic, and I think numerology cracks the code. Of some of these things.
yeah, but Yeshua was crucified.
Yeshua. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah,
you know,
exactly. Oh yeah,
you,
yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's way ahead of his time. I mean,
Yeah, but
too
we
much.
listen. I like I said before, I think when you use these things properly, magic does happen.
I agree. I
You know,
totally agree.
there
Yeah.
it, but that comes from not. it's like when The Secret came out, and all these people who didn't know anything about spirituality were like, all of a sudden they'd be, these people that didn't give a shit about this stuff are all like manifestation and, it's positive thinking. I mean, there was a book written over 100 years ago called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's a
Love
famous
that.
book,
Love that book.
and
It's very true.
this was not anything new. It was just repackaged positive thinking, right?
Yeah.
But then, at some point, you realize that it's not about getting what you want. It's about really inviting the positivity in your life by being a better person, by believing in yourself, going after your dreams, and all that stuff falls into place, and magic does happen. Wealth and opportunities to shine and do what you want to do, and attracting different kind of love in your life when you vibrate differently. All that's true. But
Yep.
it comes from taking responsibility and working on yourself and understanding yourself. You got to look at you.
Right.
It's not like this quick fix. Yeah, there are points in your life where you can use positive visualization, you can use all that stuff, and that may help you to get it, right? But if there's something inside of you that you haven't worked on, right? If you haven't looked at your shadow, I can
Right.
tell you that even if you get it, some things are not going to work out that great for you. You have to, we're here to learn and grow and evolve as human
Totally.
beings. That's the point of it, you
Yes,
know?
actually. And there's a mastering. I'm seeing the whole perspective totally different. I don't know if I've thrown this by you. I know my viewers are sick of hearing it, but I believe now that you and I right now are actually in heaven or the kingdom of heaven or whatever you want to call it, and we're asleep. And right now we're coexisting in a dream. I feel like this is a projection of our consciousness. However you look at incarnation, we all agree that parts of us stays up there, right? Because we're talking to our higher self. What's higher self? So we're up there and we're down here at the same time. These are frequencies. These are dream states. And if these are all dream states, then you're creating everything like you do in every dream you do. Therefore, everything, me, you getting, everyone getting mad at each other, you're getting mad at a version of yourself or aspects of yourself that your mind is imagining of your, we're creating this. It's a game, I feel, the game of life to get
Well, that's the
stronger,
Matrix.
wiser.
That's the movie. The Matrix talks about that, which is
Totally. I mean, I don't
a
want to
deep
use the word
truth.
matrix.
Yeah.
I don't want to give credit to Matrix, but although it's a brilliant stroke in truth, I mean, I was like, I think people felt that. So if that's the case, right, it seems like we can enchant our life. I think what you're saying is like, live the life, enjoy the things, be a part of it, like be what you want to come. This is an enchantment, really, I think, of energy. When you start to enchant the energy, you're putting out these vibrations, this music, if you will, that's calling in similar music. And I think at the same time, because human beings are caught in the negative loop, they just keep calling back in the negative loop.
Well, that's what astrology and numerology, I think, is to help you break the loop. The purpose of the code is to break the code. And I've said this before, right? This is a code. I mean, when you come into this world and you have a dysfunctional family and you have all of these things that affect you psychologically, and later on, what do? We repeat the patterns, we reenact. They call it repetition compulsion in psychology, or I call it replaying out your lessons, your number lessons. All that stuff happens, right? If someone says, "Oh, well, you can stop that by just simply, thinking positively," no, you have to still work on yourself. You still have to change. Now, what happens when people really start to take responsibility for their lives and they realize they can break out of the matrix, right? They have to. There is if you watch the movie, there's a crisis in faith during the movie. He doesn't believe he's told he's not the chosen one, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
all know the story, right?
Right.
So
And it's based on a hero's myth, which is Campbell and all of his observations of the world storytelling. Yeah.
look, I know these guys. I got tapped to do this documentary sometime, and they didn't even end up keeping me on it because I think I called them out on it. But they were doing a documentary on ayahuasca and plant medicine. Again, I'm not against it. I never
Right.
said I was against it. But these people were thinking, well, I take ayahuasca once, and then everything, all the difficulties in my life, all the things all my wounds are evaporated. It's gone. The funny thing is, all these people that were doing this project, this documentary, I knew these people, and they were totally screwed up, and they had done ayahuasca so many times. And I remember
Right.
they hired this. I guess he was an editor that he had done ayahuasca, and they thought, oh well, he's enlightened. That guy took all their money, and they had to get more money to finish the film. So it's just like what I was just trying to say is that we are here to grow and evolve as human beings, and that takes some courage and it takes some responsibility to change our lives. Don't take shortcuts. Now there are times in your life that when you're working on yourself and the universe sees that and you're sending out a different wavelength and magical things happen
Yes.
by
Yes. It is
virtue of you
magic.
doing that. Yeah,
Things
and
that
you'll get a
astound
big
you.
break. Yeah,
Astound you.
because you're
You're just so personal and so precise, right?
right.
Yeah.
But
That's
but
what you live for. Hmm.
that happens organically. The
Uh,
magic happens.
Yeah.
You,
Oh, yeah,
if,
yeah, yeah. Whether you all you have to do is try, it'll happen. Yes, I agree.
yeah, I'm just saying you don't have to try. It all falls into place. You
Yeah,
know, when you are on the right path and you are connected to your soul purpose, right? And your heart, things will start to fall in place. You'll start attracting different kinds of people. You
yes.
start to attract different kinds of opportunities in your life. You will
Mhm.
vibrate differently. The types of relationships you have, you'll attract different. And I've seen it again.
You'll look younger. You'll look younger. You'll feel younger. No matter what age you are, you feel younger. Like,
But that wasn't sold to you. You did it. You did
correct.
it. You changed it.
Yes. Yeah. I believe by changing your energy, which means you quit whining and you respond to yourself and pick up the baby. If you feel
Yeah.
like a baby, then pick it up. If you let the baby sit in this dirty diaper, which means you spend the whole weekend being upset at someone in the world that you can't control.
Yeah.
You let that baby just sit in that shitty diaper all weekend long. That's not self-love. People think that self-love is out of you. Self-love is an inside job. Only inside. And so inside,
100%.
letting yourself sit there in a shitty diaper for a weekend is not self-love. Self-love is like, well, I'm not gonna let it get to me. I'm not gonna let it spoil my day. I'm not gonna take my joy from, let my joy be taken away. That's where you stand up and you draw a line with yourself. And that's the 0 and the 20, as far as I'm concerned. The 0 is the line. It's like we need a little space between these feelings and these feelings, just a little space. You talk about the separation in the beginning of your talking. It's like, yeah, well, that's like God's children separating from God, and also is us separating from the past. And yes, those separations are distinctions such as I've grown up, I've learned, distinct, and those distinctions really what allow you to go to yourself. I'm not getting myself upset about this because I've made so many changes over the years. I'm letting this emotion go, and people don't realize by letting that emotion go, you're now no longer anti-Iawaska. You're kind of in that direction. And by the way, I've done, enough, in my life to know, yes, you are enlightened until you come down. Then you're no longer enlightened. It's like, as soon as you come down, it's over. You're no
Go
longer.
ahead and be that enlightened with some jackass cuts you off on the 405 freeway. Let's see how enlightened you are then.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you bring up
Right.
but you bring up a really, really good point, and that is you got to the promised land by dealing with the shitty diapers, by sitting in your
Yes.
shitty diapers.
Yep.
And I'm saying, folks, don't be afraid to sit in your shitty diapers and grow from that experience because that's what's going to get you there.
Right. I
Don't
agree.
don't have someone sell you the promised land overnight
Yeah.
because sitting in the shitty diapers is the greatest thing. I've had to go through some pretty gnarly relationships, pretty gnarly stuff,
Mhm.
right? And I look back and say, God, why would I attract someone like that? And because I needed to face some things within myself. That's the mirror. I say,
Right.
I've seen how this works in tens of thousands of cases.
Yep.
I see how it works. And I don't think we should try to escape the lessons in life. I think we should own them. And when you do, you realize you can change the matrix. You change
Yeah.
the matrix by realizing it is a matrix, number one, and that you were subject to the matrix. But now that you look at your wounds and your conditioning and all those things that created the matrix, once you take responsibility for that, you can change that. And yes, magical things can happen in that because I've seen it in my own life and others' lives. But
They will have.
what I get worried about is people online saying, "You don't worry about this shitty diaper. I can take away it all. I can take away
Yeah.
all It's like that Star Trek episode where they pick up that guy on some planet. There's this distress signal, and they bring this guy on the Gene Roddenberry, the guy who wrote Star Trek, was a genius. And this guy comes on the ship, and he's able to literally go like this to each person and take away all their pain immediately.
Yes. Yeah.
Gone, everything. Even Spock, who was Mr.
We
Logical.
did not have pain officially, but yes.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't have pain. He's like, well, actually, you have all this pain about being half Vulcan and half human, and you feel like this half breed, and you don't feel accepted. And he healed that, and then finally, he sort of took over the ship. Everyone sees this guy as the guru, as this demigod, and then he finally goes to Kirk, right? And of course, William Shatner, all his gloriful, horrible, bad Shakespearean acting.
An Aries 9, by the way, an Aries 9 character. Go on.
Yeah, just extraordinarily bad acting, which is so good. It's so good and amazing.
Look at how bad it is. Yeah.
And he's like, and he says to him, he goes, Captain, let me take your pain away like I took everyone else's away. Why won't you let me? Who wants their pain? And he goes, and in his Shatner-esque way, he goes, my pain is me. He did the whole Shatner thing.
Yes,
You
totally.
don't understand. I'm my pain, right? So,
Right.
but what he was trying to
True.
say in his Shatner-esque was his pain was a part of his process. It made him who he is today. It gave him depth. It gave him knowledge. It gave him, the transformation from here to there, right? It's like the diamond that, goes through all of this, the cold of the diamond, all that stuff. It's like all of this is a part of the transformational process. Let's not skip the step. Do I believe in magic and amazing things? Yeah, I think I do. My mom said that to me. Listen to me. My mom said that to me that, within days of her dying. She said that this is a magical world. This is a beautiful place. Amazing things can happen. But you have to understand that all of that happens in its right time. Let's not skip the steps.
Oh,
Don't
God,
be
you're speaking
sold
my
on.
language, brother. That's exactly, you can't skip steps. And that's steps astrology. What shows you is the steps you're skipping, the steps you keep skipping. You can see over and over again the clients. And that's where my fascination with numbers is, that there's a sequence, a spell, basically, that there's a bit of a enchantment that happens when you are in line with yourself, and then you bring your aligned self into an environment. It falls under your enchantment. Everything wants to vibrate into that song, and that's where you have like these master intentions that I think bring back immediate results. And from then on, it's like a game. We're in a virtual reality game where we are the joystick, where we have to basically, move ourselves, and by changing who we are and the vibration, I think we change the magic that unfolds before us, all of life. But you're right. You have to go through the steps, and you have to do the work. That's the thing. But I think people are forced to it. When you have a lot of stuff going on that's crazy like this, you're forced to do the work. So Josh, you've just given us a glimpse of your brain that I want to see in a book like Pronto. First of all, I think it's time, man. Just like pour out your heart. If you're going to be somewhere traveling for a while, which you might, like just pour out your heart. Like you'd be surprised how it just comes out. But you are ready, and things you're coming up with are things the world needs to remember again. You have such excellent points. So I hope I'm going to push you a little bit as the 9 a.m.
I know.
We'll
Well, I
start
have
early
part of the
to keep
book
you up.
written.
I get you to move.
Part of the book is written. It's just about, getting the point of like writing the book proposal and all of that kind of stuff, and then getting it out there, for people. But
Yes.
there's so much noise, right? There's so much noise, and I think, you and I are the same generation. We're Gen X,
Yep.
or same age, and you've been on this platform since the damn near beginning,
Mhm.
if not the first astrologer on YouTube. There's a
Mhm.
lot of work and hard work, and that you've gone through, and trials and tribulations to get to where you are right now. And we worked at a time when, you know we didn't have social media when we first started out,
Yeah.
and people went to you because of the quality of your work, not how great you were on camera. you know
That's for sure. Yeah.
you know what I mean, not
Yeah.
because
Well, they
you were
apply it to themselves.
attractive.
You're right. No, Coley. No, look, I believe from the beginning, you're not going to do, if you can't help a person take one step in their life in whatever you create as a influencer, if you're not going to encourage them to go one step in your life, then you are a waste of time. And everyone needs a little encouragement past that step that they're stuck on. Everyone's stuck on a step. So if I was useful, people are like, wow, that really helped me with this. To me, that was always the path, how useful I was. What was your
Well,
path? Because being a Libra
what do you
way
mean?
back. Well, as far as like, how did you come into your expertise? For me, it was like being a little reliant. I mean, you talk about being on the internet the whole time. I look at it as like doing stand-up comedy. I was like working with the crowd. They're telling me what's working, what's not working. I'm adjusting it to the formulas and the algorithms with this incredible, for the first time in my life, feedback. It's like, wow, astrologers have immediate feedback. Immediate. You got to, not to the classifieds and, back in the old days, like there's stuff back there, the horoscopes, and even then the comment section was even more stuff than the newspaper. Astrologer never knew how accurate they were. It took a client who was open to say that was amazing and da da da. But having now the public to be like, all the areas agreeing or not agreeing, and then being able to like get to the core, like find out, play with my algorithm and find that perfection of like how to like read them. At that point, you're useful, right? So I think if you're not going to study formally, you have to at least do what I just said. It's like study your audience, study your effect, measure your ability to help the person move to another step. That's at
So,
least my opinion. Go ahead.
so I always, thought being adopted was a factor, because when you're adopted, there is a wound there, and
Yeah.
you don't know who your biological parents are. I didn't meet them until I was 18 and 19 respectively, and
Yeah.
of course it made a lot of sense because I was a musician, and turns out my birth parents were both musicians in the 60s. My mom cut an album while pregnant with me, and my father was a little bit of a rock star, had a couple hit songs in the 60s. And
Yeah.
so but uh there's a wound there of like, well, well, if I'm not from these people, who am I? And you feel sort of disconnected, untethered from your environment. And look, it's not like I had bad parents, and some adopted kids grew up with such loving parents that it really heals a lot of that. But for me, also my parents were so old when they adopted me, that the generational gap, right? So I really felt disconnected. I was on a search to understand more about who I was. So that was one impetus. The other thing was, I think innately I had a mind for alternative spiritual thoughts and ideas. I just grew up in a family that taught scholarly research, skepticism, and my mother was a senior professor at UCLA, and my father was this luminary in the world of labor law, the former director of the labor board, and a judge or an arbitrator, if you will. And so these are highly educated people, skeptical about many things, and so I think numbers bridge the gap between mathematics, reason, some sort of algorithm, and the unexplained and the spiritual. And I think for me, it worked well. When I'm working with a client, it's like it's healing for me because I was lost, growing up in many ways. And even though I grew up, in a beautiful part of town and I had good parents, and, there was a lot of excitement growing up in Hollywood and all those things, but I was lost inside and unsure of who I was. And I think numerology helped me to explain what my predispositions were and why I struggle with this and why I feel a calling to do this. It was written there for me, right? And my job is to help other people find that within themselves, to help them find their path, to help them find their way forward, And I didn't do it just for the money. There's a lot of things I could have done, for money. And I did it because I was passionate about it. And I still am. Can you imagine? It's going on 28 years, and I'm still passionate about it. You
Yeah.
know, and so
When you're in love, you're in love.
the transformational process. I'm bringing order to chaos. And we live in a very chaotic world right now, and the work that you do and I do helps bring order and balance to things at a time when we need it the most.
Yes.
You know, and
Yes.
it's just very, very important work, and that's why I take it so seriously. And maybe I'm a little harsh sometimes on other people. It's not like I want to, just because someone is younger, that doesn't mean they aren't good at what they do. I saw some good people on TikTok and Instagram. I saw some good people that were smart and seemed to come from a good place. There are good people out there, don't get me wrong. I just was shocked after I threw that one video out, that old video on TikTok, and it went viral, and suddenly the algorithm was throwing me all these other people in our genre, and I was looking at some of this going, well, some of this is not good. And
Yes, I feel you and I are forefathers, and there are foremothers as well, many
yeah,
foremothers of the new era. What I mean by that is I feel like our job, we're at step zero of the new era. We're at step zero of the age of Aquarius. People go, are we in the age of Aquarius? We're in step zero of the age of Aquarius, which means we are energetically setting the foundation for it. Yes, and we're consciously doing it. Yes, and I think what you and I do is bring in sort of a multi-lifetime wisdom that says, okay, this is how it has always been. These are the ways it's always been. And once everyone goes, this is the way it's always been as a reference, then now go crazy with it, see what you can do. Because I think these kids are not here really to adhere to, they're here to break the rules just as you encourage them. The problem is who's established the rules. I think the rules are unestablished. I think that's what you are. That's what I am. I'm part of the next establishment, really. That's why I work so hard to be on every week. My frequency is like, on the air, 19 years of frequently doing this, right? So that becomes sort of like okay, I'm not crazy. Look how long Witecki's been making a living at it. Like you and I think are here to ground those terms, but then I expect them to fully break our rules. And that will be the fun part where we're sitting as old men in the theater booth going, holy shit, look what you did with that number.
well, I've always said this, and I've said this publicly before, and on a slew of podcasts, that I expect someone, once I finally really put my system out there, I expect somebody to take my system and improve it or change it, or update it
Mhm.
in some way. I
Yeah.
expect that to happen. And I, by the way, I rejected some things that I learned earlier on in my research of authors that are supposed to be renowned numerologists or astrologers. I realized and did my own research and found that some of this stuff was not working properly. Right, that was the trial and error. That was the scientific approach of research and what works and what doesn't work. Right, and so I'm okay with innovation if you're coming from the right place in your heart. if you are,
Okay, that's a valid point that I didn't mean to
yeah,
step. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yep.
And the other thing is
Where you come
that
from is so important, dude. You're right.
you need to get results, you know,
Yes.
and people can throw out anything they want, one of the things you learn is that you're humbled by the fact that we can't be infallible machines, right? We cannot be, but we have experience, and I'm not saying that younger people can't be good at what they do. I saw some good ones and I really thought, okay, this is it. And by the way, I follow them, so I support them, but I don't think there's something to be accounted for experience, because there's things that you learn along the road of doing this, the mistakes that you make, the trials and errors that you go through as you're perfecting your system, and only experience can teach you that process, you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and you know what I mean?
Totally, I totally know, and I agree. And I think, first of all, you and I can go on forever with this. I love hanging out with you, dude, and having this. I feel like a person who could be, who could be hokey now. They might have been a palm reader in their past life. They might have been a gypsy that stole money every week. They might have. They had to first remember the criminal before they come into the light. It's all these different variations of stories I'm noticing. But I do know this, dude. You're a good numerologist. You, as far as I'm concerned, are my anchor. As far as numerology and numbers. And I would like to invite you back again, of course. I mean, on this level, instead of helping some relationship out, let's keep talking on this level. I'm curious what you think, for instance, AI and numerology, and where we can start to merge like ancient technology with modern technology. But where can people find you, dude? You must be booked up already. Or are you focused on Europe now in readings? What's your plan?
Well, I'm not going to be available for, well, I might have a couple of days available coming up, but then for about a month, I'm going to be out of town.
You're
I'm
offline.
going, I'm going to go. Well, I don't know. Look, I think I'm going to be in New York from the 17th to the 21st. And I don't know, I'm throwing it out there. Maybe I might have time if someone's in the New York area, if they're, then I might, do something fun and wild and meet with someone and give them a reading. They'll have to contact me on my website for that, because you're not going to be able to book that on my schedule.
And that
And then
is josh-siegel.com.
joshcode.com, Josh-Siegel.
Okay,
know,
both.
And then I'm going to be going to Europe for a month.
Yay.
There, But I'm gonna, look, I'm gonna start posting more stuff. God forbid that I do that, but I'm gonna start posting some things from my journeys. I'm gonna look at a few sacred sites while I'm there.
That's cool. You should post.
And
Don't be afraid of social media just because you see people on there, stealing. It's like, if this is like being in the old days, and you're like, I put up a note on the counter board. I'm like, there's a telephone now, Josh. We got this phone thing. I don't like that phone thing. Don't resist the internet. It's our future, man. It's like how we're coming together, and you're so good.
look, I know that now, and I thought about it, and I realized that as much as I don't love it, I really don't. But I think if I have to stand up and take the responsibility for what I do, I can't. I have to look at the reality that's social media is just a reality factor now. It is what it
Yes.
is.
Everyone's opinion matters now. Everyone's opinion. That's part of the
And that's good. That's good. I think what it is that I realize that as much as I don't like it, I will probably, in order to get the message out, I'll probably do more of that, in the future. I just don't depend on social media for my clients, so it doesn't matter to me. I will be putting things out, because I think it's my responsibility to put out my knowledge in a way, to offer a different way of looking at these things that may be helpful to other people, and I think that's something that I probably will do in the future.
Yay. Well, we'll be better for it. I think the internet's the new town square, and the loudest and clearest voice that resonates will be the one that's predominating. So I'm glad you're in that arena with us, and thank you for coming into ours. We'll see you soon, brother. Like, we'll do it in another 30 days. You guys, if you didn't get his website, it is what's the fancy one? Josh-Siegel.com. www.josh-siegel.
Well, it's basically it's Josh Code, JOSHCODE.com.
Josh Code.
That's the easy one to remember, right? It goes to Josh-Siegel.com, but
Perfect.
Josh Code, yeah.
I love it.
And look, if you're in the New York area during that, was it the 17th to 21st? I might meet with some people there while I'm there, before I, other than that, you're probably gonna have to contact me, because you won't be able to book a session for at least a month, probably maybe a little longer, but we can always talk, figure something out.
And actually, the chance of having an in-person meeting with him is incredible. So you should hop on if you're in New York. I'll just say that. And so thank you, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Hang out backstage real quick. We'll wrap up on our deep way. And
Sounds good.
thank you for coming today, man.
Been a pleasure.
I was like, Josh, oh, it's gonna be so fun. It's like a treat. And for all, I just want to remind you that this is a time of learning at SeriousJoy.academy. We have a number of classes coming out, including 40 Days of Self-Love for Other People, Intro to Step Astrology, where I teach how to be in touch with these codes inside of you, how to use them, and how to use them for you to put yourself in a spell with the world where things are coming your way. It is a formula, something that was fallen out in ancient times. So Josh and I both have the same agreement and approach on that one. And that's at SeriousJoy.academy. Otherwise, I'll see you all on Friday, a week from now. Until then, I love you. Live, love, be.
I'm Suzanne.
I'm Michael.
Join us on our podcast as we talk all things woo.
Grab a drink and subscribe to
All the woo, A to Z.
Available everywhere. Audio Jungle.